Hey guys, welcome back to the Avoiding Broke podcast. And oh my gosh, what a week it has been. And before we even get into the detail, let's just say happy Valentine's Day to everybody out there. Hope you're having a really great day. So guys, this week, right, when we've been looking at markets, what's happening in the world, to me it seemed like a really strange week in terms of news I've been reading and things that we've kind of been picking up. So it seemed like markets have done strangely well, which I say strangely because, quite honestly, I didn't expect markets to be so resilient this far into the year, given the volume of government spending, given you've still got a lot of people still on furlough, economies aren't operating at full capacity. It seemed a bit strange to me that kind of markets were doing reasonably well. We saw a little bit of news coming out from different industries. So, certainly here in the UK, where I think things are kind of, whilst cases are spiking, what we're seeing in the economy is that it's kind of maybe slightly more stable, as in slightly less controversy maybe. We certainly saw people talking a lot more about what's going to happen post the rollout of vaccinations. You heard a lot more positive sound being made about what a post-COVID economy could look like. And you heard some, I think maybe somewhat conflicting opinions about the ability to even have things like a good summer holiday. Guys, a lot of this stuff honestly seemed quite strange to me. You know, when I step back and have a look at where we are, what we're seeing, what's actually happening, you've got economies where governments are doing the majority of the spending. Most of the economic activity we see is really coming from government money. You've got upwards of 20% of the population on things like furloughed. So you're effectively seeing businesses and industries being nationalised, and the government are paying the wages of the people. You're seeing people living on far less money than they had previously. So you might be looking at furlough payments, which is covering 80% of your money, or stimulus checks. It's a pretty bad economic situation, but yet still things like stock markets seem to be doing quite well, and you seem to hear some strange sounds coming from industry. Guys, for me, this is the kind of point where we need to really kind of step back and start asking some fundamental questions about whether or not what we see really makes sense to us. And one thing that we at Avoiding Broke would certainly encourage is when you see things that don't really make sense, be a little bit more cautious. You know, it's all good to have optimism, and we're definitely sitting hoping that things improve for the better for everybody. But when you start seeing stuff that really doesn't quite add up, don't always take it at face value necessarily. Start thinking, does this make sense? And how do we start protecting ourselves a little bit more? So I guess that kind of comes on to the next thing that we've been doing a lot of this week. And I've really been trying to rebalance things, and I kind of touched on this a little bit last week. Just trying to rebalance where we put our money, how we're kind of thinking about it in the future. So definitely things like not wanting to be too invested in the stock market, 100%, right? Because the stock market, it doesn't have a proper correlation with the real economy right now. It doesn't make sense for the real economy to be suffering and for us to be experiencing significant economic decline, but then you've got a stock market that seems to be doing at least reasonably well, if nothing, at least flat. It doesn't make any sense to me. So we've been looking at that. And we've been thinking kind of a little bit more about how to change the kind of risks that we take. One interesting thing that we're looking at now is a lot more at cryptocurrency and thinking about what does cryptocurrency really mean for the future. And if you kind of think about it, right, the way we're looking at it is when the internet first came about, a lot of people didn't think the internet was going to go anywhere. And a really great example is when you look at advertising. And people used to advertise in like phone books and things. And you had some people, when the internet was coming about, some people looked and said, pay us to help you advertise on the internet. This is going to be the next big thing. And you had detractors look and say, nah, forget about it. We're just going to rely on a phone book. What happens? The internet swallowed up the world. You had some really interesting kind of like technology companies. Let's just think about Facebook, Apple, Amazon, Google. When these guys first came about, these guys would have looked and said, you know, pay us to be your search engine or jump on our network. It's going to be really big. a lot of people would have said, nah, no way, forget about it. Now these guys are kind of taking over the world. You know, when you look at something like Netflix or Disney Plus, these guys would have looked and said, streaming is going to be the primary way that we all watch TV. Just jump on board with us, invest in us. Some people would have said, no, forget about it, we've got cable. Now have a look. I don't even know many people who watch TV anymore. And so this is how we're kind of starting to think about cryptocurrency. We've got this kind of world where we've got physical currency, we've got hard currency, or we've got credit cards, and we still think, yeah, definitely, credit cards and cash, that's the way forward. But I just kind of think to myself, could we be seeing something like the internet or like the birth of streaming companies, where now you've got this cryptocurrency that's saying, look, you don't even need to carry anything. So long as you've got just access to a computer, right? You can basically jump on, you can transact, it's cheap, it's quick, and you can trust us. So you'll be able to see exactly who's doing what, when, and where, because you've got this blockchain that is recording everything. And it kind of really got me thinking, and it's increasingly getting me thinking about the case for cryptocurrency as being a really important asset to start holding. I know you're always going to get lots of people that say it's worth something and those who say it's worth nothing. I almost don't want to have any of those kind of discussions, and instead start thinking, is there value in diversifying a little bit? Because I could be getting into like what was effectively like the birth of the internet, or the birth of streaming, or the birth of the big social, like the big media giants. It could be a similar thing that we're seeing. And so for me, it's really worth taking a little bit of a punt. Let's see, right? You guys got to do your own research and think about it, but it's worth looking into. What I think is then going to be really interesting, guys, is how we think about risk management for the next kind of 6 months. So I've kind of been talking to you about how the underlying economy doesn't really tally up with what we're seeing in like the stock market. So maybe when you kind of think about, let's just say like small and medium businesses. So small and medium sized businesses in a lot of economies, they probably account for like 30-40% of the economy, maybe more in fact. And what's really interesting is that those are the very businesses that are closed right now. And I mean, just kind of let that settle into your head for a little bit. When you go out and you look at your local butchers, your local small convenience stores, your hairdressers, some of your different tradespeople, when you actually have a look, these are the people who are not active right now. You know, they're the people whose businesses have really suffered during this whole COVID pandemic. And I think there's a really big question about whether or not they'll ever even be able to open up again. You know, don't want to be too down on it, but I just think it's really important to kind of be asking yourself those questions. Because if you're in those kind of companies, if you work there or if you own one of these kind of businesses, you should be thinking about, do we remain long-term viable, even medium-term viable, once stimulus payments stop or once furlough payments stop? I think the worrying possibility for many is the answer is no. And so, of course, it then gets you thinking, well, how do we start managing our risk right now if indeed the future, at least the medium-term future, looks a little bit bleak? I think, guys, this is a great time to go back to those expenses audits that we were talking about. It's a great time to start thinking to yourself, what's the state of our buffer? If you are receiving money, and even I know it might be a real challenge for people right now, but if you are receiving money where you have any kind of surplus, can you start banking a little bit more? Can you reduce your liabilities? Are there any kind of second jobs or alternate jobs that you can start lining up, just to start thinking about how you start managing your risk profile a little bit better? It feels very important, guys. You know, like one of the things I read and was told this actually by a wealthy person is that one of the things that people do as they start to get wealthier and wealthier is they start to value insurance more, and they start to make sure that they try to lose less. Really important, guys. As you start moving further and further up that wealth curve, you value insurance more and you start to try to make sure you lose less. That's one great thing that I'd share with you guys. Maybe not all of our parents had told us that kind of thing, but wherever you are now, just start thinking to yourself, is there a way to insure myself more? Is there a way to ensure that I lose less? A great place to start is your expenses audit, but you're going to have a lot of other ideas that you can follow through on. So guys, as ever, if you've got any comments, questions, please let us know. Hit us up on all platforms at Avoiding Broke. You know we're there, you know we're regular, and you know we're trying to get this great content out to try and help you. If you're new to the channel, thanks for joining us. And please smash the like button and smash the subscribe button, because we're trying to be here as regularly as we can, guys, giving you those insights, sharing our reflections, and hopefully we can see everybody move to a better stage of upliftment during this really challenging time. It's been a blast to be with you guys. As ever, me and Leanne are going to see you soon. We're really here trying to grind and trying to make a few little moves for ourselves, and we're going to come back and we're going to share them with you as soon as we've got them landed as well. So as ever, guys, thanks for being here. Have a great weekend. Have an awesome Valentine's Day, and we'll see you next week. All right, guys, take care. Bye-bye.